Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? What's up, everybody? You know where we are. Back with the fifth episode of Big Sports Talk. Oh yeah, and it's always a lot of shit to talk about. It's always a lot of stuff to discuss when it comes to sports. And I've been looking at some interesting things that everybody's talking about. One of the things I wanted to get into, especially after the recent Celtics and Pelicans game, that was a good game. What I like about it is I always thought that the Twin Towers idea could work. It reminds me of the David Robinson, Tim Duncan days. So the prospect, you know what I'm saying, the possibility of Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins, you know what I'm saying, AD and Boogie really getting down and doing their thing, that could be something different for the NBA. It could really bring bigs back because everybody's so focused now on point guards and small forwards. I like to see a day and age where we get back to the bigs, man. And I think if the game really is starting to increase in physicality and get back to a little bit more aggressiveness, people can touch each other, have some actual contact in basketball, then I think the bigs will start to become more dominant. Somebody posed that question today: what if the NBA brought back hand checking and went back to a more aggressive, physical type of NBA? And I was like, the Pelicans would dominate. You know what I mean? The teams with the bigs, those are teams that would dominate. There are still guys who are going to be beasts. LeBron will still be a monster because he's huge. He's a big, small forward. He's really a power forward size-wise. But a lot of them point guards that you love wouldn't look as good as they look now. You know what I mean? I.e. Steph Curry. It ain't that easy to shoot the three with somebody hand checking you and putting bodies on you all the time. It's hard. Now, at the same time, he pulling up from the hash mark half the time, so you may not even get a chance to touch him. He pulling up from so far back. But what I really wanted to get into was talking some more about DeMarcus Cousins, because I think he's vastly underestimated. He's one of those guys that if you watch him, and I know a little bit about him from hearing about him very, very, very back in the day when people were talking about him when he was young. Even after I left Mobile, I lived in Mobile for a couple of years while I was going to school, and my wife grew up there. So he went to LaFleur High School, LaFleur Magnet High School. They've always been a pretty solid school as far as sports, but in Mobile, basketball isn't heavy. In Alabama, period, basketball isn't heavy. Like, they got some ballers, but it's not heavy. It's a football state. So to see him come out of LaFleur was something else. And that place ain't no joke. They ball out there at LaFleur, man, out there in Tomerville. You can find some decent parks, and they gonna ball with you. Same thing goes out there with Williamson and Blount. Those are all decent, decent schools as far as athletics. They in rough areas. So they not necessarily good schools per se, you know what I mean? It's hood schools, same old shit that we all know about. But some ballers came out of them. Jamarcus Russell came out of Williamson. Some dudes came out of Iger too, and definitely Blunt. And a lot of people are from that Tomerville area, man. I think, oh boy, the rapper Rich Boy is from that area. But DeMarcus is one of the guys who coaches talk about from the AAU all the way up. And an AAU coach described it very interesting. He went up to Birmingham, I believe, to play some AAU ball, and they kept hearing about him. And he was probably, I think, like 12 years old. And he thought that the other coach, the scouts who met him, was like exaggerating his size. They were like, oh, he's probably like 5'11", 6 or something like that. We're talking about a 7th grader. So when he showed up, he was 6'5". You know what I mean? A 12-year-old. That's 6'5". That's crazy. You can't even imagine that. I mean, it's middle schooler walking around at 6'5". And that school that he went to is still pretty good. They're pretty decent to this day. LaFleur's pretty decent this year. Last I checked, I think they were like number 2 in their class 6A or something like that. But he's always been big. He didn't play football. He didn't play basketball his whole time. Before that, he was kind of into football a little bit. His mom is the one who kind of convinced him and coaxed him into trying. And all right, let's learn to play some basketball. Let's really get into it. And once he got into it with that height and that size and got around the right trainers, and then got to Kentucky, and now he's in the NBA, and he's able to do so many different things because although he wasn't necessarily a basketball player early on, he was always very coordinated. That's one of the things the coaches saw early. And they were like, he's big, he doesn't know how to play basketball yet, but he's coordinated, so they knew they had something they could work with, somebody they could train and get them acclimated to the sport of basketball. And lo and behold, you have somebody that's over 7 feet tall, 270 some pounds and can move. He can move around, shoot the tray. I mean, he is no joke, man. Boogie is underestimated. Now people are starting to recognize. I think a lot of the underestimations weren't about his talent early on. It was about the attitude and getting angry, being a little bit too aggressive towards the refs and things of that nature. Now we see this year he ain't the only one because Kevin Durant got that got a little bit of that in him. But anyway, that's just a little bit of background history on Boogie, man. Keep watching out for him. Dude is a true baller. Of course, we know Anthony Davis is a baller. That Pelicans team is one of my favorite teams to watch because I'm glad to see centers. I'm glad to see big dudes ball in the back. This whole situation that we was talking about in the last episode, as far as the Rockets and Clippers, people are saying it stemmed from a young cat who's injured now, Austin Rivers. And so that becomes like a firestorm under which we say shit about Austin Rivers, who a lot was expected from Austin Rivers when he first came out of Duke. They certainly expected him to be better than he was. But you never know. Rookies is rookies, and they ain't time tested. So he came out and he wasn't as good as they thought he was going to be. A lot of the Clippers players, when he was on that Clippers team, Doc Rivers didn't like him because Doc Rivers was the coach. His dad was the coach and president of basketball operations. A lot of the shit they had beef with was like, some of it was minor. There were complaints about, Doc Rivers would yell at somebody about certain shit that they do fucking up, but he wouldn't yell at Austin the same way. So they would get mad about that. It's sort of like if you have one son and you on him more than you on the other sons. Now, my take on that is that Austin Rivers was young. He was a rookie. So if he yelling at veterans more, it's largely because he expects more from those guys. He know Austin and the rookies are probably still developing. Whereas these guys, he's like, what the hell are you doing? You know better. That could be it. Or, I wasn't there. None of us were there. They may feel a certain way about it. They also didn't care for him getting that 3-year, $35 million deal because they didn't think it was worth it. I don't know. That's a tough one. Number one, Doc Rivers may have been a part of saying yes, but he isn't the only person that's going to say yes. Being president of basketball operations is basketball. You're not in charge of the money per se. That's really like, the GMs, the vice presidents, like higher up executives. The dudes that deal with the money are the ones that calculate a lot of that stuff. A lot of those choices aren't made by the president of basketball operations. The owner himself even looks at a lot of that. I mean, you talking about money that's coming out of his coffers. So it ain't very many people that owners and the higher ups leave that to. Nonetheless, was he worth the 35 over 3 years? Probably not now that he's injured. But other than that, right before the injury, if people look at it, he was doing 15.8 points a game, two assists, and like 3 steals or something of the sort. So he wasn't doing too bad. He wasn't doing great, but he was improving. The 15.8 ain't bad at all. 16 points a game, he's getting you that. The way the last NBA deal was structured, that TV deal, it got a lot of people a lot of money that they didn't deserve. You know what I'm saying, per se, because everybody's numbers went up. So is he like, is this as bad, to compare it, is it as bad as that Rashard Lewis deal? Remember when Rashard Lewis got like $100-something million? I think it was like 110 or something like that. And he never did produce worth $110 million. Well, you got to think, and by the time this Austin Rivers deal comes, $35 million over 3 years really isn't as much as what it used to be. And plus, 35 over 3 years since he got that deal is when he started doing the 15.8. So he got better. I don't think he's worth the 35 over 3 years. I think that should have been more of like maybe a 15 over 3, 15 to 17 at that time. But if he continues to improve, then the 35 won't be as bad. A lot of that animosity really just built up because it's hard to, people gonna look at you funny if it's somebody that's in the organization that you related to, regardless. And that really may not even be the only tip of the iceberg. Another one may have been when they tried to, like, it was a trade that was supposed to happen. People ignoring that one. And that trade was like, because they were trying to get Carmelo Anthony. When the Knicks was shopping Melo, the Clippers were looking at it heavy. And so the deal was like, it was supposed to be Carmelo Anthony and Sasha Vujacic go to the Clippers in exchange for Jamal Crawford, Paul Pierce, and Austin Rivers that year. But Doc said no to that. Now, my personal opinion is it wasn't a very good deal. It wasn't a good deal anyway. I don't think I didn't see it. I don't think they would have been any better adding Chris Paul, adding Melo and Vujicic. Like, and you lose Paul and you lose Jamal Crawford. I don't think you really, and Austin Rivers, a backup point guard for Chris. And which you need backup point guards for Chris because Chris tends to get injured. As much as I love Chris, he's a legend, future Hall of Famer for sure. But Chris tends to get injured. So why am I giving up my backup point guard, a scorer in Jamal Crawford, and a scorer and defender and a veteran who could teach the youngsters in Paul Pierce from Melo, who's great, but he ain't bringing you no defense. And he may or may not bring you any more offense than Paul Pierce and Jamal Crawford. And Sasha, just like a lynch, they just threw him in there just because it's a name. Like, he ain't a bad player, but that's just a name in that deal. He wasn't going to improve the Clippers in any way, shape, or form. So, in my mind, Doc denied that deal because it was a bad deal. In their minds, they're like, nah, he just didn't want to trade his son. So I could see from both sides and shit, you know what I mean? So if you add all that up with the fact that all of these players have been moving around between the Rockets and the Clippers, that's when you start to get to that type of animosity and shit like that. It should have never came to nobody trying to go to nobody's locker room and shit. That's surprising. But it looked like the NBA getting a little tough again. That's just a part of basketball. But y'all let me know what y'all think about. Was Doc showing favoritism really? Or were these just bad deals really? The $35 million might have been a bad deal, and then turning down this one might have been smart because it just don't seem like that great of a deal. That's all I'm saying. Y'all let me know. Hit me up in the comments. Beard and Sports. Peace.